Later in this tutorial, we'll use a collection of sample text included in the Supplementary Materials section. If you'd like to practice along with the tutorial, open the file called MLA-in-Text Practice now. In the past two tutorials, we worked on creating a works cited page and formatting some sample source entries. In this tutorial, we'll look at the last piece in the puzzle, the in-text citation. You've done a lot of research while writing your paper, and you've developed your works cited page list summarizing that research. In-text citations are the way that you say to the reader, "Hey, I did a lot of research, so you should really listen to my ideas." Or on a more practical level, they are little arrows directing your teacher to all your hard work and demanding credit for it. Think about it this way. You wouldn't spend hours completing math problems and then neglect to turn in your work. So you shouldn't spend hours researching an assignment and then leave out the in-text citations so that your teacher doesn't see where you used that research. And while I don't like to emphasize the plagiarism issue, because I think student writers should focus on why citation helps them, rather than on getting into trouble, I do need to touch on the reality that most schools have some kind of academic integrity or honor code that bans plagiarism, which is the use of external source material without proper credit. Proper citation, including the use of in-text citations, is crucial to avoiding charges of academic dishonesty. The basic guideline for citation is that you must cite material that is neither your original idea nor common knowledge. If you use the wording from the source, you must place the quoted material in quotation marks. However, whether the material is quoted or paraphrased, you must insert an in-text citation. Students often want to know how often they have to insert in-text citations, and the answer is that anytime you come back to reference material after having moved away from it, either to offer original analysis or to include material from another source, you need to insert an in-text citation after the reference material. If you find that you drop a citation at the end of the paragraph to cover the entire paragraph, you either aren't citing properly or you're relying too heavily on one source, because you should never have an entire paragraph that has no original analysis and only draws from one source. We're going to work on a sample document that has some text in it, so go to the practice document now. The normal pattern for an in-text citation in MLA is the author's name and the page number, with everything enclosed in parentheses. If the work has multiple authors, separate them as you would items in a normal series, with commas between the authors and an "and" before the last name. If you have only two authors, you can omit the comma. I use three sources in this paragraph, and I use my first source in the second sentence. The citation goes at the end of the sentence, clause, or phrase where the source was used, before the comma or period. I'm going to place my citation right after the word evidence. Parenthesis, Steckel, and, Prince, 290, parenthesis. My next citation goes at the end of the third sentence, after the word nation. This citation is the one that students often mistakenly omit because the next citation is going to be from the same source. The general rule is that you should err on the side of oversighting if there's any concern that the reader might not recognize all the cited material. In this case, my next citation is a direct quote, so I'm not confident that a reader would realize that the citation after the quote also applies to the paraphrased material. I'm only using one author, but I do have a two-page range. Parenthesis, Hill, 191-192, parenthesis. The third citation goes after the quote. When citing quotes, you move the final punctuation out of the quoted material and place it after the citation. So first, delete the period after history. Now in this case, I already mentioned the author's name, and we can omit any information that is already mentioned in the sentence. So all I need is the page number. Parenthesis, 192, parenthesis, period. My last citation comes in the last sentence and is sort of an anti-citation. MLA prefers that writers eliminate parenthetical citations when there's no page number by adding the author's name to the body of the sentence. So I've reworded the sentence to include the video poster's username. Now we have a paragraph with 4 citations, 3 in parentheses and 1 incorporated into the sentence. Before we wrap up this tutorial, I want to mention a couple of common student writer errors so you can avoid them. First, students are sometimes hesitant to cite all their sources because they fear that in-text citations are a kind of admission that the work isn't original. However, if you look at my paragraph, you'll see that my argument is the topic sentence, and my research is the evidence I use to prove that my argument is valid. Basically, I'm saying that Laura Ingalls Wilder's portrayal of Native Americans is controversial, and here's the research I did to prove I'm right. I've used 3 different sources, so the reader can clearly see that I gathered material to support my idea, rather than relying on someone else's idea. So students should avoid writing a paragraph filled with research from just one source, but you shouldn't worry about showing off the variety of your research. Another common error students make is to incorporate the information in the parentheses into the structure of the sentence. They craft something like the following. In an article about the perceived tall nature of members of the Osage Nation, cite a story in Little House on the Prairie as anecdotal evidence. As you can see, material in parentheses is basically an aside to the reader. It should be ignored when reading the essay aloud so that sentences are structurally sound without them. And that's it. You may want to keep this practice paragraph available until you get used to in-text citations. There aren't too many variations on in-text citations in MLA though, so you'll likely get the hang of them quickly with practice. Thanks for joining me for this tutorial.